between raspy breaths, between the slaps of his feet against the ground to try to convince himself of it. The end of the spiral came on all sudden, his feet still trying to go down even though the floor was suddenly flat. He stubbed his toes against the ground and fell, palms and knees scraping against stone. The floor had been worn smooth by thousands of feet, but it was still rock, and it bit harder than the cold. The screaming got louder, like it was crying out in pain with him. It quieted back down when Aro picked himself up, but it didn't fade away. He had to pass by the arch with its big carved figures, but he kept his eyes on the floor. He could remember the first time he'd really understood what he saw. Avora had touched the face of Rora, the goddess who fell from the heavens without looking back. Her brother, Vatri, did look back, and he cried and begged for mercy and reached for his parents, and because he was looking up and not down, he didn't see the ground coming, didn't have time to hold himself together. The preachers never showed Aro any pictures of how Vatri would look with his arms and legs torn off, and they never promised Aro they knew where to find the missing limbs. They just gave vague answers when he asked, said they were sure all would be made whole again. They didn't seem to want him thinking about that part. The way deeper was almost hidden, a small hole in the wall where the blue torchlight didn't quite reach. Aro closed his eyes as he stepped through the opening, though there was no point to it. It would have been just as dark if he kept his eyes open. There was a difference to it, though. It was easier to walk in a darkness that was of his own making. He knew when to open his eyes, knew where the first flickering ghost light would be. Dirikara had said that they must have been something of Frattaro's creation, the purest light. The preachers had been trying for years to use the little moving lights to replace the blue torches, but they hadn't had any luck. Out of the cavern of the falls, the ghost lights guttered and died. Inside the big cavern, the screaming started to quiet. It didn't go away, but it faded enough to make him feel less panicked, to let Aro think about something other than the pain that wasn't even his. He could breathe, could feel his heart slowing down. He reached up to touch one of the ghost lights, feeling the soft warmth against his palm. Not enough to make him stop shivering or to keep his breath from frosting in the air, but enough to make him smile, even though the screaming still rattled around between his ears. He liked to imagine Vatri as the creator the preachers said he'd been, pulling Roturo from the earth so he could sit at its peak and shape an untouched corner of the world that could be his alone. He liked to think of Vatri standing here in the center of a big empty cavern and wondering how he could make it beautiful. Even though it froze the tips of his fingers, sometimes Aro liked to break off spines from the icefall and shape them into castles or creatures, breathing on the broken-off ends until they melted enough to stick together. "I am Vatri," he would say then, trying to make himself believe it. He wondered if Vatri could be put together so easily, breathing on his arms and legs until they stuck back on his body. He walked out to the icefall, not to shape anything, but because the voice was always loudest there. He'd told Avora that once. She'd made him repeat it when more of the Ventalo were around. "You can't forget the audience," she'd reminded him. This was a calm place, a powerful place. Even though they were still so far away, Aro always felt like they were closer here, in the cavern of the falls. There was a small space, almost too small for him now, between the icefall and the stony ledge it tumbled motionlessly from. He wedged himself into the space, shivering, and let out his breath in a slow fog. "I'm here, brother," he said aloud, though he said it to the screaming in his head. The screaming didn't stop, but little by little, across the immeasurable distance between them, Aro felt the terror slowly begin to fade, leaving behind only the pain that was too great to be held back yet. Aro sat there, cold burning through his nose and lungs, and offered what comfort he could. "Help me," the familiar voice finally came, smaller and weaker than usual, soft behind the screaming and the sobbing. "Please, it has been too long. This is too much. Please, find me." "We found your foot," he offered, though it wasn't enough. One of the Ventalo, Tantor, had shown him and Avora 5 glowstones that he said showed the path to glory.